Hello and welcome to today's on-demand webinar. I'm excited to be speaking with you all on the topic of expansion revenue, both what is it and what are some strategies that, if executed well, can help us grow revenue by up to 100%. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Wahid, Strategic Account Manager at Paddle, and I'm also the payments and revenue expert. That's both focusing on how can we generate the most payments and revenue up front, but then prevent its loss down the line via churn, refunds, and chargebacks. Very briefly, Paddle is a SaaS commerce platform. We work with thousands of different SaaS companies around the world in the B2B and prosumer space. I've been really proud of the work we've been doing together, enabling the go-to-market strategies for these companies. Highly recommend you go check them out. They have some awesome products and some awesome growth stories as well. That said, diving into today's topic, at Paddle, we typically look at kind of these 4 key monetization moments, but then categorize them into 3 areas. You have customer acquisition, which is probably where most of our resources are going today, especially on the commercial side. Customer retention, a core requirement of any SaaS business that they have a good retention strategy in place. We've actually published a lot of content around this topic recently. Do go check out the blogs and webinars and podcasts that have been created on this topic. But for today, we're going to be focusing on customer expansion. Now, customer expansion is probably the area I consider most neglected in the SaaS space today. A lot of companies leave this until they hit that enterprise size where they have a full sales team or a success team dedicated towards expansion, or kind of only time it when it comes to actual renewals that are happening with their customers, as opposed to thinking of it as a consistent thing that they continue to work on. So we're going to talk about why it's important that customer expansion gets developed, and then what are some key strategies that we can take. Now, with customer acquisition and the fact that a lot of us are dedicating our resource here, it's really only one area to optimize. The conversions especially is only one area to optimize. Looking at the metrics for it, it's obvious we all know net new customers, net new revenue, and trial to paid conversion rate are the main criteria that we're setting for ourselves. Within that, we'd be looking at underlying metrics, checkout conversion rate, payment acceptance, and so forth. The issue with this kind of focus at the moment is that as time goes on and competition increases, it's becoming less ROI positive. Our friends at Profitwell have found that it's 3 times the competition in the industry today compared to a few years ago. SaaS is more competitive than ever before, and this isn't going to slow down. We're only going to see more and more SaaS companies enter the industry, which is an awesome thing, but it does make things harder for us who already have SaaS businesses. And you see this in the data as well. So looking at the specific Crest SaaS survey, you can see that acquisition is 10 times more expensive than renewals and 4 times more expensive than upsells. This is tremendously important, as if we're a VC-backed company, we're going to be looking at how can we extend our runway. If we're bootstrapped and we're trying to get profitable as quickly as possible, these kind of monetary considerations are important to account for. We don't want to be throwing all of our money into the most expensive strategy if it's not going to be giving us the biggest return. So looking at the kind of the cheapest offering here, which is retention, as great as it is, and it's something we all kind of work on and develop, the reality is it's your long-term growth lever. Again, familiarizing ourselves with the metrics, customer retention rate and dollar retention rate, this kind of second building block. Best case scenario, if you're in the SaaS industry and you're kind of in the top tier, you've got a 35 to 40% retention rate after a 2 to 3 month period. As great as that is, it's not really that growth rate that's going to help us achieve the 2 triples and 3 doubles, or Jason Lemkin's 10, 100, 110 metric. Which is why I want to talk about expansion revenue. And at Paddle, we consider it really the most efficient way to maximize profit. Not only because it's cheaper than acquisition, but because of a few other considerations as well. Again, let's look at the metrics here, making sure we're on the same page. MRR, we're all very familiar with. It's important to break that down into expansion and contraction MRR though, and you'll see why in a moment. Average revenue per user, and I would consider this really the crux of what we're talking about today. How can we maximize every dollar possible from our customer base? And then finally, LTV, let's take the ARPU into the picture of churn as well. A customer who pays us $5 over 4 months is worth more than a customer pays us $10 1 month. So we should always keep churn in mind with all of this. So why the focus on expansion revenue? This is 3 different kind of customer profiles that come to Paddle. A lot of companies, when they start the conversation with us, they're this dark blue line you see here. They're growing steadily quarter on quarter. Things are going well. Their number of transactions are increasing. But they want to kind of add a little lighter fluid to this. The first thing that comes to mind for them when they consider Paddle is the optimization around payment acceptance, checkout conversion rate, and that kind of area. Thankfully, we have been able to help them with this and kind of achieve this middle light blue line of that 35% conversion rate increase. Now, obviously, that metric will differ company to company, but I think a lot of you out there know how high of a 35% conversion rate increase is. For me, though, that's not really what gets me excited. Those aren't just the companies that I like to work with. The ones who I get really excited about working with are the ones who want to achieve this light green line, sorry. This is the customers who have been working with Paddle and cross-selling to 10% of their customer base. And you can see that even though in the first half of the year, their growth hasn't been as rapid as those who are focusing on conversion rate. By the end of your first year with this focus, you've grown 40% more than those who did not. That's a tremendous level of impact, especially when you consider the rate of success as well. 10% is a really conservative number when you consider how much potential you have in selling to your existing customer base. In the book Marketing Metrics, Definitive Guide to Measuring Marketing Performance, they found that you're 3 times more likely to succeed when selling to an existing customer versus when you're selling to a new customer. This is super important because we start to realize that acquisition is more expensive than upselling. So upselling is 4 times cheaper. If I want to achieve an exponential growth rate, then expansion and cross-selling to my customer base is what sets me on that pathway. And now I also know that I'm actually more likely to succeed with a cross-sell upsell strategy to my existing customer base than I am to someone who's entirely foreign to us via marketing or sales teams. You start to consider that, okay, if I want to be growing my business efficiently and quickly, the area I should be focusing on is a bit different. And we see this in the top performing SaaS companies. So across almost every single revenue band you see here, the top 50% of SaaS companies' growth have a greater portion of that revenue coming from upsells. Now, I know which bucket I want to be in. You obviously always want to be in that top 50%. So we realize the different variables that go into play here that it does lead to the success we're seeing in the top performing SaaS companies. But it's all good and well to know that something is important to do and we should focus on it. Let's talk about some actual strategies. So what can we do today in order to improve upon this? So focusing on specifically upsells and cross-sells, where upsells is more of the same, and cross-selling is offering that's complementary. Upsell, I think a lot of us are familiar with, but cross-selling is where there's a little more nuance coming into play. With upselling, what's really interesting here is how this is actually a defensive area of focus as well. A lot of us at the point of checkout will be trying to promote an annual plan versus a monthly plan, for example. What we forget to do is continue to do this throughout the life cycle of the customer, analyzing our consumers and understanding where typically they would upgrade or typically they would, for example, consider competitors. By identifying these kind of moments, we're able to better optimize our upsells. And when you're doing this, it's important to keep in mind the kind of the value metrics you have in place here and setting yourself up for success. So you see companies that don't have an annual plan, and this is a smaller group of SaaS companies, but they tend to grow 36% slower than those that do have an annual plan. When you're looking at your value metrics, if you're purely having a monthly and annual and the offering is unlimited, and we see this with a lot of companies, unfortunately, you're going to be growing your expansion rate of your MRR 45% slower. This is huge, as you're leaving money on the table of potential areas to monetize. Another area companies tend to neglect a lot is having self-serve flows for their consumer base to be able to upgrade, downgrade, and so forth. At Paddle, we support the kind of all the support queries of all of the companies that work with us. And by reviewing the data, we found that 25 to 40% of customer tickets are tied to people who want to upgrade, so they actually want to give you more money, or want to downgrade and cancel. And even though it might seem counterintuitive, by allowing your customers to self-serve downgrade, you're actually retaining them for longer. And as you mentioned, when you're thinking of LTV and thinking of that kind of long-term figure with churn in mind, anything you can do to keep your people paying you is going to be a win in the long run. So don't make it harder for customers to kind of come to your platform and change what they want to pay. Setting up a contact us is great, but unless you're responding within the hour, it's just a frustrating experience overall and not acceptable anymore. They're just going to go to your competitors. When it comes to those upgrades and downgrades as well, it's, are we allowing customers to change certain variables within their plans? Whether it's tiers, so going from bronze to silver to gold, or if you have potential add-ons, what parts of your business can you break out into separate monetizations? You see this with companies who target the mid-market or enterprise kind of side of things, where SSO will come with an additional cost or be bundled into a higher tier than is the entry-level tier. These kind of considerations of looking at what parts of your business can you break out will really help you monetize more efficiently. Not everyone needs these additional features, but those who do will probably be willing to pay for them. And again, with your billing model in general, are you only doing a time-based billing model, or are you actually centering your business around a value metric? Profit will have a lot of content again about this. Highly recommend you go check it out. But the moment you can center around your value metrics, you're able to sell your seats or metered kind of usage in a much better and customer-friendly way. This is a really good example of that specifically. So this is RemoveBG, a company that's been working with Paddle we're really proud of. What they've done is their value metrics is really, really clear. It's how many backgrounds, how many images do I remove backgrounds from? By selling these kind of per image offers, you're doing a few different things. You're one, it's really easy for me to pay more or pay less depending on my need. And I don't have to cancel my subscription because it's too expensive. But the other thing is the value proposition is really, really clear. From purchase point onwards, I know exactly what I'm getting, and I know the savings I'm going to get as I buy more or use it more. So you're not putting any kind of blockers to customers' usage of your product. And at the end of the day, you want them using your product more so that they see justification in buying more. That's going to keep your cost obviously also manageable. It's not someone who's using you incredibly frequently, costing you a lot more than everyone else, but then still paying the same amount. And then you're not having someone who isn't using you a lot being turned off by having a frequent or monthly amount they need to pay you. That kind of clarity and transparency is really going to help drive your business forward and give you more variables to kind of mix and play with. Another thing is also when looking at the customer experience and making things as self-serve as possible is a success story from Convertry. So they're a landing page builder, and what they had been doing is using Paddle's filtered payment details mechanism. So regardless of if you're paying by card or PayPal, we're securely storing their payment details for future purchases. And what this means is that at any point in time, a customer wants to pay for something else, they want to buy an additional plan, buy an additional add-on, it's a one-click experience. And they took advantage of this during a promotional run they ran, which is part of this yellow line you see here. Via their affiliate network, they managed to upsell all of their customers, 34% of their customers who had bought a one-off purchase onto a recurring Convertry Pro. And they've also managed via different set of messaging to upsell 17% of their customer base a higher amount of usage. So there's a few things that Convertri did right here. One, it was upselling throughout the lifetime of a customer's period. It didn't matter if you had signed up a month or two ago, or if you had bought a one-time product or a subscription product, they all upsold them all. They had provided a seamless customer experience with this one-click mechanism. But then they had a billing model that enabled them to do all of this. For customers who wanted to buy a one-off in the beginning, that was an option. For customers who were on a metered usage, they could, instead of selling them to a higher tier where there's features they don't need, they just sold them more usage, which is something they actively can measure and understand that I will get value from this. By doing these kind of things, Convertri actually managed to generate $500,000 in revenue within a week, which is tremendous. But we're all looking to build these kind of long-term sustainable businesses. And Convertri actually managed to do that as well. So the graph you're actually looking at here is their MRR over time. And with this strategy, they managed to raise their MRR by 30%. And this wasn't an increase in MRR that dropped off immediately with churn. Because their billing model was did around the actual value metrics, they managed to build upon that growth and continue moving upwards. They're still growing at a rapid rate. Definitely do go check them out. There's a few cool things they're doing on their website, which I recommend you consider. So things to keep in mind when it comes to upselling: demonstrate your value clearly. Make sure customers understand exactly what they're getting into. Make sure your billing plan is set up in a way where the value is really obvious. Continue to upsell them throughout the customer's lifetime. And the more analysis you can do about consumer behavior over time, the better you can target your upsells. Potentially, you should upsell people to an annual plan, for example, after a 2-month period, or maybe a 3-month period. Test these things out. And finally, allow your customers to self-serve upgrade. Make sure that their journey and the tooling you have in place gives them the most optimal experience possible. There's no reason to prevent them from giving you more money. Just doesn't make sense. With that said, it brings us to the more complicated approach of expansion. Now, cross-selling is more difficult than upselling. With upselling within SaaS, it's really obvious. There's some very basic industry things that you can promote more of, and to the customer cognitively as well. They're already using a product, and so they already understand the value proposition of it, and they can justify more features, more usage, or maybe committing to a full year with you. With cross-selling, because you're selling something additional to the service they're already having, something that is complementary, there's a bit more nuance here. And because of that nuance, it's really, really important to segment your customer base. Break them down in as many ways as possible so that you can better identify the trends and better understand which customers should you cross-sell which features or products. Do this in a way that suits your business vertical and also your target customer base. If you're selling a prosumer tool versus a B2B tool, your cross-sell strategy should differ. And the items that are considered worthwhile to cross-sell will also differ. With that said, something that both people who are selling kind of prosumer B2C and B2B do is leverage your happy customers. 76% of consumers treat user reviews as much as a personal recommendation. This is really important to keep in mind, and there's a reason businesses like G2 Crowd in the B2B space exist and flourish. A really common question we get here at Paddle is, who else uses you? And this is going to be similar across the board. That social proof is incredibly powerful. So if you can also identify which of your customers are happiest with your offering and empowering them, then you're off to a great level of success. And you also see that within your LTV metric. Referred customers have 16% higher LTV than those who just came through your normal sales or marketing channels. So even from an ROI angle, having a happy customer leave a review or refer people through something like a loyalty program is going to generate you more revenue in the long run. An additional reason to consider cross-selling and the variety of ways you can do it is the fact that companies with the lowest churn rate cross-sell to 30% of their customer base. This is really interesting because what's actually happening in here is that there's a cognitive shift for consumers when you are cross-selling them further and further. They're looking at you as a service now. They're no longer looking at you as just a product. When people use Salesforce, for example, they're not just looking at a CRM, but this becomes their kind of internal commercial database. These kind of different mentalities that your customers have about you will help you have a lower churn rate and will help you cross-sell and upsell more as time goes on. So the better positioning you can do around you being a service and part of their day-to-day business, the better chance you have in succeeding long run. There's some obvious ideas around how you can cross-sell, such as exclusive offers, loyalty programs, which we've touched on, and special bundles. But something I want to touch on as well is partnering with related brands. A lot of us know that integrations are really key in the modern SaaS world. It's the reason Slack is so successful. Zapier as an entire business is kind of there to enable integrations. But not enough of us are actually looking at how we can commercialize this or monetize it. What we see at Paddle, looking at anonymized customer data, is that there's actually about 5 to 10% of synergy across companies that are working with Paddle. So this is looking at 2 companies and seeing how much of their customers overlap. This high amount of synergy means there's a huge opportunity that you could be partnering with people who complement your product or in a similar space and looking at ways of promoting each other. This is you expanding your reach, but then you also kind of getting a vote of confidence from these other companies. If I'm using a product and they tell me this other product is going to really, really help me out, then I'm likely to go check that out because maybe it will make my workflow better. Maybe it'll help me in my day-to-day business. So do some market research, try and understand what other toolings people use in conjunction with your service, and then reach out to these companies and see if there's a potential partnership that you can have, whether it's a one-off marketing plan, whether it's an integration you build out. That'll depend on your 2 companies and also your market. If you're currently selling with Paddle though, and you're listening to this, please do reach out. We could potentially help you identify which other companies within the Paddle kind of community that you can partner with. And we'd be more than happy to help you out with that. Diving into specific examples again. This is Rogue Amoeba, so they're an audio tool software selling to kind of radio stations and other audio files. And what they do that I really enjoy is they have a large range of different products, but they don't necessarily heavily focus on that cross-selling pre-purchase. So they do have bundles and kind of offers that you can get where you buy 2 in 1. But then post-purchase, where they've identified now what's this initial product you've bought, they're able to better tailor their cross-selling. So they know for a fact that consumers who buy Airfoil are very likely to buy this other Windows tool. This kind of understanding of customer behavior is allowing them to really drive a large amount of revenue from the successful cross-sell strategy. And this is what I mean by better understanding your customers. With this segmentation in mind, if they were not doing that and just cross-selling any product, the success rate is probably going to be a lot lower. And even to your own customer base, it might get annoying if you're constantly trying to promote something which I don't want and don't need. Someone who does this cross-sell strategy really, really well as Render Forest. So they have a large range of different offerings, and you can sign up to a subscription where it's all in one bundle, or you can pay per product. And what I really like is that when they are setting you up for this pay per product, they're putting you actually in a workflow where you really appreciate the value of their additional products. And also the experience is entirely seamless. So if I'm coming in here creating a video and I realize that I actually need to add a logo to my video, what they're doing is within the native experience of me creating this video, they're actually allowing me to click through to the other product offering they have, which is create a logo, their logo maker. This really seamless experience that's within the existing workflow means they, again, have a really successful cross-sell strategy and are now considered more as a service as opposed to just a simple tool that I go online to try and use. So again, try and find the different ways that you can weave your cross-sells within your customer's own workflow in a way that adds value to them. It's not just a really salesy, here's 50% off, here's 20% off, buy more kind of approach. Looking again at terms of customer clarity and making the experience really seamless for them. A flow I really like is this vaulted approach and having a really easy to use customer journey. So you have your typical pricing page, a customer clicks buy, they open the checkout really seamlessly within their web page, complete the purchase. And obviously with this entire experience, it depends on your website. I'm just taking the most generic flow possible. But once they complete the purchase and they're in this customer area, you can take the lessons from Rogue Amoeba. So you have an understanding of what they bought, and you know, because you've analyzed their consumer data, what other customers who buy these products like to buy as well. Within that, they've got really easy upgrade downgrades. Do I want to add more seats? One click, that's easy. Do I want to change my tier? That's really easy as well. But then also if you have any add-ons or additional products, promoting that within the user account area and doing it in a way where you're clearly fitting this into what they already have. Having, again, this vaulted approach means one click, customer can buy the additional add-on, buy the additional product, upgrade an additional seat, whatever it may be, but the customer experience is a really seamless one. And then making sure you have that clarity post-purchase. It's still really obvious to me, what did I buy, when did I buy it, how much did I buy it for? All of these things in mind is really what's going to set you up for success to achieve that 100% revenue growth. So again, customer experience is key. Make sure everything is as seamless as possible, as simple as possible. Segment your customer base. Don't just promote any product to them. The better you understand them, the more likely they are to buy. You're already set up for success, as we saw in the marketing metrics data that they pulled, that it's easier to upsell to your customer base. So try to set yourself up for success in that regard. And tied to that is being a service, not a product. Be part of your customer's entire day-to-day journey or their entire workflow. Don't just be a tool which are completely replaceable, and it doesn't matter if I use you or use your competitor. At the end of the day, the journey you really want to keep in mind is this customer revenue lifecycle. Still focus on acquisition. It's really important. We do need to keep acquiring new customers, but don't just stop there. Once you've successfully onboarded them and you're confident about the renewals, start to upsell and cross-sell them and continue to do this throughout the lifetime of the company. Put them into nurture campaigns. Continue to reach out, understand them. If you do have a customer who's churning, determine why did they churn. Were they on too high of a plan? They should have been on a lower one. Then look at ways that you can simplify that process for future customers. Maybe they should have used more of your product range. Promote that other side of your product range. Obviously, onboarding them still again, because there's no point promoting other products that don't understand how to be used. So think of it as a cycle. Don't just stop with that initial acquisition or wait until their first renewal comes by. Continue to do it constantly. With that said, thank you all very much for listening to today. I really hope you got some value out of it. Pal is an all-in-one SaaS commerce platform, as I mentioned at the start. We handle all of the tooling around what I discussed today, whether it's payment methods, tax compliance, customer billing support, SaaS metrics, and a lot more. There's a range of case studies on our website that you can go and check out. And also feel free to reach out and book a demo. Thank you all, and see you in the next one.